All right, back with yet another versus video, doing head coaches this time. Nick Sirianni versus Brian Daboll, two very new to the scene head coaches. Only 3 years combined between the two of them, but have both made a name for themselves right away. Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year in his first year, not a bad start, but not to be outdone, Nick Sirianni got his team all the way to the Super Bowl in his second year. Let's start this video off by comparing some records, some stats. Numbers are in Sirianni's favor. Listen, 14-3 last year versus Brian Daboll's barely over 500 record. Obviously, neither of them have any Super Bowl wins at this point, this early in their careers as head coaches. But again, Sirianni was close, very close. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes got injured last year, Nick Sirianni is. We're talking about him as a Super Bowl winning head coach. Still a very good year for him, though. Obviously. Daboll, I think the difference between these two guys, obviously, is the talent around them. And as a head coach, you can't just win your team a Super Bowl. It's not like you're playing Madden and also, all the teams are equal, every player is equal in terms of, their rating, and that's all it is. No, there's difference in talent, and for someone like Nick Sirianni and for a team like the Eagles, they had a ton of talent. However, that's where things get a little bit interesting, because part of what a head coach's job isn't just how good they are at being able to, the X's and O's and all that stuff, and we'll get into kind of every aspect of a head coach, but part of it is player development. And so does Sirianni deserve some credit for getting greatness out of Jalen Hurts, because he did help develop him? Maybe. Does Brian Daboll deserve credit for getting the most out of Daniel Jones? I think so, certainly. So, again, both of these guys have hired great staffs, a lot to get into. So let's just sort of get into the three main categories here. I have X's and O's, game management, and leadership. I'm kind of throwing in player development with leadership, but kind of just the personal side of things is leadership. Just to be clear, you could, lead in 2 out of the 3 of these categories, and I would still, I could still give the nod to the other head coach. That's something that could happen. But as of right now, the X's and O's, it's fascinating because I definitely feel like the X's and O's, Brian Daboll was, I think he was better last year. But again, kind of the weird thing is was Brian Daboll better last year, or were the Giants, because he had great coordinators, and that has to be mentioned. But the defensive talent shouldn't have been, very good last year. I didn't think I had a lot of talent, but it was really, well play called. The calls consistently, I thought, were the correct ones and allowed them to get the most out of both offense and defense. I believe they were a sub-average team in both offense and defensive points per drive, but still not by much, and they got the most out of it. The offense was another situation where it was kind of okay, they didn't have a ton of talent on the outside, right? Not a lot of great wide receiving talent, goes without saying. But the Giants did a great job at saying, okay, we're going to run the ball a lot and we're going to throw short a lot. That's going to be our game plan, and we feel like we can get the most out of our talent that we do have by doing that, by taking advantage of Saquon Barkley, by taking advantage of Daniel Jones's running ability and his good ability to throw in those short pass areas. Really smart stuff to get the most out of that situation. At the same time, I think Nick Sirianni did a great job at knowing how to get the most out of a good situation. I think that, his sort of using A.J. Brown as more of a straight-up downfield, threat, as opposed to Tennessee, who kind of had him do a lot of more over-the-middle stuff while still being a vertical threat in his own right, was great. I also kind of love how Sirianni seems to be one of the first coaches. I guess you could argue Belichick did it as well with Brady, and then Brady kind of brought that over to Tampa Bay of hey, it's 4th and 1. Let's just quarterback sneak. Now, let's just do that. Shouldn't that be the right strategy? Yeah, probably should be. It's a really effective strategy and works almost every single time, so just do it every single time. Seems like that's the right call. I think that was a smart idea by him. I think that these sort of the RPOs and the option plays, using Hurts's legs when they want to and not relying on it as well, is a very smart idea and something that he does incredibly well. And I thought defensively, it's something that we've seen a lot of teams do, but they kind of said, listen, we're going to take some stress off of our corners, who are a little bit older, but can definitely be ball hawks. We're going to put two safeties deep. We're not going to get beat over the top. If you want to run the ball on us, that's fine. And I think that he made the most out of that opportunity as well. Again, how much of that was him? How much of that was the coordinators? We just don't know. We don't know if either of these two guys, but the X's and O's were great on both sides. These are two incredible X's and O's coaching staffs. Going to give the slight edge, to Brian Daboll and what he was able to do last season. Game management, on the other hand, I'm giving the edge to Nick Sirianni. Not to say that Daboll's game management was poor or anything like that, but Sirianni's, I think, probably the best game management head coach in the NFL currently. His, willingness to go for it on all these fourth downs is, the correct decision. Very analytically inclined, and you know how I love an analytically inclined head coach when it comes to fourth down decision making. He's really smart at that aspect of the game, of the, when do you punt, when do you, how do you call timeouts, all of that stuff. The Eagles have been, well above the curve on, and they've been there for, quite some time. It's been before Doug Peterson, they've been doing this stuff, which always makes me wonder how much of it is coming from upstairs and how much of it is just that's what Sirianni wants to do. My guess would be they hired Sirianni because that's what he would want to do, that would be how I would assume it to be. But yeah, again, Daboll, not a bad game management coach, but just not on Sirianni's level, because very few, if any, are. Finally, leadership. This is a tough one, because again, how are they as leaders? I always find this, it's weird because it's obviously such an important part of being a head coach, but it's also so difficult to tell when you're not in the room. You just don't know exactly. Sometimes, guys, we think, oh, that person seems to be a great leader, and turns out they're not. They just, had a couple good sound bites. Nick Sirianni obviously had a, infamously bad opening press conference, but other than that, has seemingly been fine. Brian Daboll again, from the outside looking in, seems to be a solid leader as well. So I'm going to kind of mainly focus on the player development side of things. And so far, the young players for the Eagles have definitely developed better than the young players for the Giants. In the 1 year Daboll was there, Evan Neal didn't exactly, light the scene on fire. Although again, part of that might just be Evan Neal might be a project type player. Thibodeau was really good, so I don't know. Both have been you're not mad at either one of them or anything, but if I have to split hairs, I'll give a slight edge to Sirianni, but really I'm probably just going to go tie for leadership. So let's go tie for leadership. Then that would mean a edge in game management to Sirianni and an edge to Daboll in X's and O's. But I think there's a bigger gap in the game management side of things than there is in the X's and O's side of things. So I'm going to go Nick Sirianni. For one thing, I've seen Sirianni be a good head coach for 2 years now. I've seen Brian Daboll do it for 1 year. So the sample size is a little concerning with Daboll. Was this really good, or was there a bit of luck involved? When you've done it for 2 seasons, that the bigger sample size makes you feel like it's more likely to be a trend. The old expression is, if 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a trend. So neither of them have 3 seasons of greatness under their belt, but combined to have 3 seasons of greatness under their belt. And I think it will be a trend. I think they'll both be very good for a long time. I think you'll be able to make this, have this question even a decade from now, potentially. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.